Hello, welcome to Calls with your Kinky Bestie. I'm Emma. I am a submissive and mentor for fellow kinksters. This podcast is all about insights into kinky life and dating, sharing my personal experience and stories, and help share mindset shifts too to get you into a confident space, more confident than you are now. So get ready. It all starts now.
Should you have a scene name? What's a scene name? And also, my fun tips for alternative ways that you can use scene names, and maybe why you should consider one even if you haven't before. So, a scene name is a name that someone will give themselves, or maybe someone else will give to them, and there's no real strict process on how this has to happen. You can literally make it up for yourself. But the idea of a scene name is it's a name that you either use, in a kink scene, or sometimes people will just have like a name that they use within the kink community to protect, their real name and their identity, because there's some safety issues that go into that if people can find your address, or, if you go back to your workplace or anything like that. So the reason, there are a few reasons that people might use it. The biggest one being just that real tactical piece of literally protecting your identity and for your safety as a human. But the other piece, and the way that I like to use scene names more for, is as a manifesting tool. So before I go any further, I'm going to tell you that Emma is not my real name. Emma is my scene name. I had intended, whenever I started my business and to go public in the kink space, I had intended to use not my last name, but my real first name. Well, even in my real life, I don't use my real first name. I use my middle name, but whatever. But I had intended to use the same identity that I have outside of the kink community. And literally as I was setting up my business and all of this stuff was happening, a friend of mine who is also in the kink community and has been for a very long time, used to be a professional dominatrix, actually, we randomly ran into each other without there being a plan. She was sharing some life stuff with me. I was sharing this life thing with her. I hadn't even really told many people about it yet. I don't know why. I just felt, called to tell her, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And I think I maybe had even said something well, before I put this out there, I'm trying to figure out what name I should use, if I should use my real name or if I should hide things in a certain way. And I think at that time I was really leaning more towards using my normal, outside of scene name. And it just felt so kismet that she came to me right at this moment of this thing happening, and hand to heart, grabbed me and said, you have to protect your name. You have to protect yourself. That is a special part of yourself. You have to protect it. And so whenever I initially came up with this name, Emma, this scene name that I would use, it, went more along that tactical lines. If I thought this would be a way I could protect my identity and just ensure that, I'm safe and sound before I have all the, money to protect myself that I'm hoping that this business will create for me someday. Because I was scared. I hadn't really done this, so I wasn't sure what the reaction would be. I thought it would be a lot more negative, and it has been. It has been very positive. For the most part, I've been finding people who are totally on board with this thing and excited about it, or at the very least, not super nasty and hateful, but there's always the possibility of that happening. So, this might protect me later down the line, whatever. So there was that tactical piece, and whenever I first picked my scene name, it was for that reason of trying to protect myself. But what's become really beautiful about having this scene name that's different than the identity I carry outside of kink is it's really become a manifesting tool. Whenever I'm stuck, whenever I'm, get into patterns of fear or shame about my business or shame about talking about this thing, I can then go back to this identity that I've created in my head of Emma, the kinky bestie. What would she be doing? How would she be supporting people? What would she need to do to reach her people and share this thing? And literally just step into this mindset of this, identity that I had created. So that is another way that you can use scene names. It's a really powerful tool, and it doesn't have to be just about protecting yourself, though it can be. That's a very reasonable thing. And if you don't know, if you're unsure, it's probably best not to share personally identifying details. So yeah, that's my reveals that Emma's not my real name. Please don't try to find me or dox me or anything like that. That is not cool. I doubt that would happen, but yeah, it started as a protection mechanism, and that might be the same for you whenever you're picking out your scene name, but it's also a lovely manifesting tool. And think about whenever you're creating this scene name for yourself, like the characteristics that you would want to have and kind of how you envision yourself to be as a kinky person. So you can start, clinging those attributes onto whatever that name it is that you create, and using that as a way to step into the new person that you want to be. It's a really, great opportunity to do so because, the name you have now, like your given name, it's probably been with you for all your life. Like as you were, maybe you grew up in a religious household where there was shame around things, or, maybe you didn't, but still there was shame that you were around, and, maybe you did things as you were experimenting with kink that you are not as into today and things like that. So it's totally okay to change your identity as you change and grow, and actually it can be a really powerful tool. And of course, that's just a little information about what scene names are and why you shouldn't really be surprised if you find out that someone that you're scening with or interacting with in the kink community has a different legal name. Like it's not this big deceit. It's actually just them protecting themselves because, there's still a lot of shame and stigma around the kink community. And that's all starting to trickle out as we're making this more and more neutral and more of a understood and talked about thing, which we should keep doing. But also it's okay if you use a scene name, or if your partner uses a scene name, or if you just decide that maybe you're not even using it as a way to protect yourself, but if you just want to create a new identity in your head of who you want to step into, give it a name. Give it a name, start acting like them. Okay, hope this little bit was very useful. All right, chat soon. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me this episode. You can follow the podcast on the platform where you're listening to get updates with new episodes. You can follow me on social media at Kinky Bestie. I'm on Instagram. You can also check the show notes for any links or resources that I talked about in this episode, or just more ways to connect with me. And please share this with your kinky friends who could benefit from this type of content. There is also an option for each podcast episode to engage with Q&As or polls. So I'd love to hear from you and create future episodes around what you want to chime in with. So please check those out in the show notes too. And I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.